وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
Morning, and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hachem with the Michigan.com. Thank you for being with us. Today is Friday, and it is a beautiful day. It's Friday, June 16th, and it's a cool day. After a lot of rain, we needed the rain. The temperature is expected to reach the 70s. Enjoy the day. On behalf of US Arab Radio, we wish you the best of time and peace and happiness during this beautiful weekend, holiday weekend. Juneteenth is on Monday, so please enjoy it. Summer is starting, and part of summer is one of those little nasty, whizzing things that go around and annoy us and sometimes leave us puffy and itchy. Worse than that, sometimes they leave us sick. And then the state recently put out an advisory asking people to be careful because of all the diseases that they carry. And with us this morning is Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian. She's the state's chief medical executive. Good morning, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. So these nasty little things can harm us. What is the threat here, and what can we do to really protect ourselves?
Really great question. So the advisory we put out talked about a virus in specific called Jamestown Canyon virus, which is just one of the viruses that mosquitoes can carry. And so this advisory is not just really about that particular virus. It's just a reminder that mosquito season is here. Winter seemed to drag on forever here in Michigan. And then all of a sudden, we were in this dry spell that really delayed some of the mosquito breeding season. And now that we started to get some rain, those mosquitoes are breeding. And whenever they breed and bite people, they can, of course, transmit diseases. And the diseases that we worry about in the Michigan area in particular are things like West Nile virus and EEE, Eastern Equine Encephalitis virus. And then, of course, the one that I mentioned earlier, the Jamestown Canyon virus, which is less common than those other two.
Yeah. Just to remind listeners that mosquitoes lay eggs on the ground and then they don't hatch unless it rains. Once it rains, they hatch and then they come after us with force. Also, only female mosquitoes go for blood for egg reproduction, and through the process they can carry diseases. You mentioned the 3 diseases. Could you tell us a little bit more about what's the severity of these diseases?
Well, with all 3 of these diseases, there is a broad range of symptoms. And in the majority of the time, people may not have symptoms at all. They may be completely asymptomatic and may not even know that they were exposed to an infected mosquito. But people can also develop symptoms like fever, headache, chills, and in the most severe cases, they can develop conditions that are known as meningitis or encephalitis, and that is an inflammation of the brain or the spinal cord, or the tissues around the spinal cord. And those can lead a person to actually have more severe illness and end up in the hospital in some cases.
Now, which one is the worst one?
The meningoencephalitis, that severity is the worst severity. But do you mean which virus is the worst virus?
Yes.
So again, with all of these viruses, they can go from asymptomatic to those severe cases of meningoencephalitis. And all three of them can actually have that severe presentation.
Yeah. And it's kind of a little early for mosquitoes right now. I mean, is this unusual to find these infected mosquitoes?
If anything, I think the mosquito breeding season got pushed a little bit later because of that really long dry spell we had when it wasn't raining. So I think things got pushed a little bit later, but then we of course expect mosquitoes to continue breeding and feeding on people throughout the warm summer months. So we really want people to take this advice about avoiding exposure to mosquitoes now and then through the entire summer when these critters are out and biting us. And the type of advice that we're giving people is to use insect repellent, so things containing DEET or other approved formulations by the EPA, to wear long sleeve, long pants when they're out in nature. You can even do things like use fans to blow them away from you if you're sitting outside and trying to enjoy a meal. They're not very strong flyers. So just do whatever you can to avoid those exposures.
Absolutely. The best way is to avoid them totally and either be under a mosquito net or be inside. What are the worst time for mosquitoes? Is it like, I believe it's evening and morning or?
Yeah, so dawn and dusk is when a lot of people get those mosquito bites. And, in these long summer days, we really find people wanting to enjoy those cooler times outdoors. And that's really when you can get bitten. So use those precautions to protect yourselves. And then the other thing is you don't want mosquitoes to breed in your area, in your neighborhood or around your house. So if you make sure there's no standing water, that's another way to prevent mosquitoes from breeding
Yes.
in your surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. And which they do live, and I don't know the classifications and the names. I'm not an expert on mosquitoes. I did a story on it a long time ago, but they do breed in stagnant water, not equipment, whatever it is that holds water. This is where the bats are good. I wish the state builds more bat houses to bats can eat up to 1,000 to 3,000 mosquitoes a night. So it would be good to have some bats around. Now, if we get bit, and I mean, there's a lot of different bites we take. Which one does it really look different? The one that has the virus, or we don't know? We just start developing symptoms. And how long does it take to develop symptoms after being bitten?
So you really can't tell, which mosquito is carrying one of these diseases. You really can't often tell, if you've been outside, you may have multiple bites. You may have had bites over many days. So it's really hard to pin down which bite caused the exposure. And the bite wouldn't look any different. And in fact, there are many of us who don't really have that reaction to mosquito bites. So you may not even get a really raised, itchy, round bump. And that is really dependent on us. Some of us develop those raised itchy bumps more easily, and some of us don't. So people may not even know that they have been bitten. So it's just really good to try to avoid them as much as you can. And by the way, I'm very impressed with all your mosquito facts.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So why do we get this red bump, some of us?
It has to do with your immune system. And so some of us are more irritated and our immune system reacts more strongly to the mosquito saliva. And some of us don't. And so if you have a friend or a family member who seems to get bitten less, you might feel jealous, like you're not getting bitten at all, and I'm covered in mosquito bites. And actually, the truth of the matter is, it's possible they're getting bitten less, but it's also possible they're just not developing those itchy round bumps, and they're getting bitten without knowing it.
Yeah. Are there any vaccines for the three diseases you mentioned in regard to mosquito bites?
We don't have human vaccines for those diseases yet. But of course, there's always vaccine development and scientific trials going on. So maybe that will change in coming years.
Okay. So for now, the best thing to do is, protect ourselves, avoid, these times if we can, and then use repellent if possible. Because the higher the DEET, I think there's more effective, as long as it doesn't, we don't have a reaction to it.
Higher DEET can last longer as well, and some mosquito repellents last longer. And of course, you can always do multiple things. You can use multiple strategies. You can apply DEET and then put on, a jacket with long sleeves or wear long pants, and put your fan on outside. So you can do multiple things to try to keep them away.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some of us, and I don't know what's true or not. And then you mentioned, you spoke to that one as well. So some people maybe are bitten and they don't know. And I noticed that you see them flying toward more people than others because of the carbon monoxide and other factors. While I have you on the show, what kind of flu season? This is I'm going to shift to a totally different topic, but since I have you on the show, what kind of flu season are we expecting? I heard some news about in Australia, the flu is pretty bad, and that sometimes serves as a warning to us, what kind of flu season we're going to have.
Very much. So that's one of the things we do in public health is we track what's happening in the Southern Hemisphere because we get clues about our coming cold and flu season. And yes, we have been noting that there has been a more severe flu season in the Southern Hemisphere. And so it could be predictive of what we're going to see here in the Northern Hemisphere. But every year, scientists reformulate the flu vaccine to cover those strains that we saw circulating in places like Australia. And so when the flu vaccine comes out in the fall, it should cover those circulating strains. And that's why it's really helpful for us to track what's happening in different parts of the world. So it will be very important in the fall to get your updated flu shot because it will cover those new strains that we've seen circulating. Absolutely. And while I'm talking about vaccines, can I mention one other thing?
Yes. I was going to ask you about COVID.
Oh, I'll talk about COVID too.
Okay, go ahead.
And then maybe one more thing as well.
Sure.
But things are really good with COVID right now. COVID cases are very low. Of course, we're not picking up all COVID cases because people test at home. But the number of COVID patients in the hospital, in the ICU, on ventilators, and people dying from COVID, those are all very low. So things are good with COVID right now. For folks who have been a little bit hesitant and saying, is this a good time to start taking off my mask in public places? This seems like a safe time to start removing your mask, unless, of course, you have concerns about your own personal immunity and you want to continue masking. Of course, everyone can make those choices for themselves, but this is a relatively safe time, one of the safest times we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic when it comes to COVID. But COVID is going to become more seasonal, and we're going to start seeing it in the same way we see influenza really becoming a problem in winter months. And so I think this is going to develop over time, but we're also looking towards a vaccine approach that will be similar to influenza, where there'll be a new COVID booster in the fall. We'll ask people to get their COVID booster, and hopefully it will cover for the strains and the variants that are circulating that winter. So I want everyone to know that this is a good time for COVID, but we will likely see surges of COVID in future years and future seasons, and we just have to be aware. And we from public health will communicate that out when we're expecting a bad COVID season.
So we should expect an updated booster when that, like September, October?
So we are hearing, and this has not been formally announced, but we're hearing that COVID vaccines will become an annual shot like flu vaccines. But again, this is tentative information that I'm sharing a little bit preliminarily, but it is likely that we'll start seeing annual COVID boosters.
Absolutely. Now, the best time to take the flu shot?
So it really depends on what we're seeing. A lot of times in most normal years, so before COVID, I would tell my patients the best time to get the flu shot is in October, because then you'll have immunity that lasts through those worst months, which are usually in February, January, February, and maybe March. But because of COVID, things have been a little bit different these past few years, and we'll have to wait to see what this coming flu season looks like. Will it come a little bit earlier because people are not taking precautions, people are not getting vaccinated? Will it come later because maybe people are using some of those precautions? So it's yet to see what the flu season will look like, but in old flu seasons, I would say October is a good month to get your flu shot.
Absolutely. Now, monitoring what's going on in Australia, it should tell us what kind of mutation for the flu we're going to be dealing with. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we look at circulating strains of influenza and then modify the influenza vaccine accordingly. Places like Australia, South Africa, places in the Southern Hemisphere that are experiencing their winter months now.
Wonderful. Is there anything I haven't asked you that people need to know?
Yes, I would love to just spend a minute talking about routine childhood immunizations.
Sure.
One of the things we saw during the COVID pandemic is everything became very political and people lost some of their trust in public health and health messaging. And we saw that childhood vaccinations have decreased over these last 3 years. And the rates of these routine childhood vaccinations that you and I had, when we were younger, those rates are going down. And there are fewer parents, for example, getting their kids vaccinated against things like measles, mumps, rubella. And we are now approaching rates where we will start to see outbreaks. We will start to see outbreaks in communities and schools and daycares if we don't do something about those routine childhood immunizations. These are very safe vaccines. They've been around for decades. Many of us had them when we were children. And I really want to encourage your viewers to talk to their friends and family about getting their kids up to date with vaccination, because COVID is in a good place right now. But I would hate for us to suffer the consequences of something like a measles outbreak that could be entirely preventable.
Absolutely. And, the easiest thing to do, just reminding listeners, is, I called the state and I also called my doctor and I said, what are we missing for our children? And they said 1, 2, 3. So we got them taken care of. Absolutely. I really appreciate your mentioning this. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. As always, your information is incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have
Absolutely.
a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye now.
Were you recently at the emergency room, urgent care, or at your doctor's office being told you need a hand, wrist, or elbow specialist? At the Katranji Hand Center, we offer the latest techniques in hand, wrist, and elbow care. From sports injuries to work injuries to everyday hand, wrist, and elbow problems, the specialists at Katranji Hand Center are here to get you back on track. Call us in Troy today at 248-869-4263 or visit us at katranjihandcenter.com to schedule your appointment today.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
Welcome back and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hachem, editor via Michigan.com with US Arab Radio. Again, I want to thank Jerry for calling and thank Dr. Bagdasarian for being on the show. And we will be talking more about Father's Day later on. But now we want to talk about a great topic, and that is the new novel by Aisha Abdel Gawad and Two Moons. I believe I think it is Two Moons. It's a beautiful novel, And nothing makes me happy than talking to an Arab American author who successfully has put out a new book or a new novel. Is it Miss Jawad or Miss Abdel Jawad?
Abdel Gawad, the Zoom name is wrong.
Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate you taking the time, and what a joy to talk to you and to read about the novel and your success, and it is I'm gonna order it today because I can't wait to read the new work. Again, thank you so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about you, and then how did you get into writing, and then we'll talk more about what the novel is all about.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I've always been interested in writing ever since I was a child. My father's also a writer, so it was something I've been doing my whole life. And I went to college for journalism. I got a journalism degree, and it took me a little while that I was actually more interested in making up stories than telling real stories. So I went to get my master's degree in creative writing, and that's really when I started taking it more seriously and realized that these stories that I was writing over and over again were actually part of a novel, a larger story.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to remind our listeners that Aisha is the daughter of Dr. Jawad. He is a veteran journalist and one of our star host on our show, and I've always enjoyed talking to your father. He's based in Washington, is that correct?
Yes, he is.
Very well knowledgeable, and has been around for some time. He's a seasoned journalist, and it's no surprise that you think about journalism, because your father, I'm sure he had something to do to influence you and in that way.
Absolutely. My dad is a great supporter of me and my work, and he's also just a great journalist and a great storyteller too. So he was a big influence on me growing up. And even though I didn't pursue journalism and I wrote fiction instead, I think he influenced me in the way I approached the research I needed to do to write this novel. So I think I took a more sort of journalistic approach to the research required for the book.
Absolutely. Well, at least you're very honest, because most journalists today write fiction. They don't write so you listen to the news, and it's mainly fiction. So how did the idea for this novel come about?
At first, the novel, the protagonists are these two twin sisters. And so that was the initial start. I was interested in writing this story about these two girls and their relationship. And then I started working in Bay Ridge, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn, which has a very large Arab American community. And that sort of gave me the setting for the book. And I was working in Bay Ridge in 2010, which was perhaps a peak period of police surveillance of Arab and Muslim communities, especially in New York. So I really started to get interested in what is it like to grow up young and Muslim and Arab in a post 9/11 America where Muslims and Arabs are being watched.
So are these two characters, do they portray traditional Muslim girls? Meaning that, do they wear hijab? Do their names are Arabic, and this is why they could be targeted?
They are. Well, it depends on how. One of the sisters wears hijab, and the other does not. But they're both Muslims. They're both believers. But I think the way that they approach religion is different, even between
Sure.
those two sisters. And they have, Arabic Muslim names. And really, it's like the whole community in this part of Brooklyn is under intense surveillance, which was true. So even though the characters are made up, that intense police surveillance of that particular neighborhood was a real kind of documented fact. But the book does absolutely explore kind of their relationship to faith. It's set during Ramadan. So it's kind of about it starts the
Sure.
first day of Ramadan, and then it ends a little bit after the end of Ramadan.
Yeah. You intended it to be during Ramadan, so you can really portray the authenticity of the story.
Yeah, I was interested in how Ramadan is a sort of intense time for Muslims. You know, it's intense physically, it's a physical challenge, but also it's a time of real self-reflection. You know, you're supposed to be thinking about what you do and what you say and how to be the best version of yourself and becoming closer to God. And so I thought that that was an interesting pressure to add to these teenage girls who are sort of trying to figure out who they are anyway, just because they're teenage girls, they're almost adults. And then they have this added pressure of feeling like, what are they going to do with this time during Ramadan? Are they going to waste it, or are they going to make themselves better?
Absolutely. So, you know, the idea for the story has been around in your head for some time, and then you decided, okay, here's what I'm going to get into more of the technical writing here. So you put the skeleton of the story, or you witnessed enough events basically that gave you the structure of the novel.
You know, I worked on this book for so many years, and I was so young when I started it that, to be honest with you, it was a mess for a long time. But I think
which is okay. You know, what's important is the end. Yeah, which is okay. Yeah.
So I really just started with characters and really developing the characters. And it took me a longer time to figure out the plot. And so kind of how the plot was going to structure the story. And I think once I got more into my research on police surveillance of the community, that really helped me provide a sort of a structure and a plot to guide the characters along.
Did you get any coaching while doing this, or afterward you talked to editors and things like that?
Really more afterward. I did work with have an agent, a literary agent, who provided feedback on drafts. And then when she thought it was ready, she sent it out to publishers. And then when I eventually signed with a particular publisher, then that editor gave me more feedback.
Okay. How much work did they work with you on the novel, which is normal to in writing, I always say I'm lucky when I fall into the hands of a good editor. It's going to rip it apart and put it back together. Absolutely.
My agent was really instrumental because she saw some really early, very messy drafts, and she really helped me. It was quite long, the book. She really helped me cut and edit it down. And it was in much better shape by the time it got into the hands of the publisher. Yes. But the publisher also said, for example, she said, it seems like you have 3 endings. Why don't you cut the last 2 endings? Just one ending is all you need. That's the kind of help that was really useful.
Yeah. I interviewed a writer a while back when I was working in Florida, and he said his book was 900 pages. And when they were done with it, it was 325 pages. And I said, I understand the process, but for those who don't, and I said, were you sad? He said, at the beginning, yes. But then now I have a much better book. There's so much to sacrifice. And we were attached to these ideas, but at the end of the day, I think the product is better. How big was your book, and what did it end up being?
It wasn't that long, but it was quite long. It was over 500 pages. And I agree completely with this other writer. It was, at first, it was difficult thinking, oh, this is a good scene, or I like the writing here. But in the end of the day, if it doesn't serve the story, then it should go. And it ended up feeling kind of liberating for me. And I got a lot better at just kind of, without any sentimentality, just cutting what didn't.
Merciless. Merciless. I remember writing a story about Syrians visiting, that was in the 90s, visiting their relatives across the Golan Heights through a valley with bullhorn, because at the time there was no cell phones and no internet and nothing. Those under occupation and they're not under occupation. They used to meet at this valley with binoculars and bullhorns, and they visited. And I wrote a huge story, and then at the time the editor of the St. Petersburg Times slashed it in half. I was really upset. Look at all these, because they don't do anything for you. And it turned out to be really a good story. I did win an award for it, but it was really good. I'm glad that they did. As far as diction, did you notice that they're changing words that helped you, or you wish that it stayed in the novel? And I'm asking the technical question here for those who are aspiring to become writers in our community.
I would say that they really left the diction up to me. They would tell me not exactly what to cut or how to change something. They would just say, for example, I don't think this part of this scene is working very well. And they would talk me through it, but then it was really up to me to go back and rewrite, revise the way that I needed. And I liked that approach. It gave me a fresh set of eyes on the novel, but ultimately it allowed me the creative freedom to make sure that the every word was mine, and kind of how I would say something.
Yeah, you got some really good reviews by the New York Times, by the Washington Post, by a host of people in the literary community. How's it feel to, it's your first novel, and then you got wonderful reviews on it?
It's amazing. I honestly feel a little stunned, like I haven't totally processed it. Sort of a dream come true, that to get this sort of attention, because ultimately I hope people read it, and I hope people enjoy it, and I hope some people feel like it represents them. And so the coverage from the New York Times and these other good reviews is really flattering, but I think the best part about it is that maybe it gets the book into the hands of more readers. So it's been amazing.
We talked about how people in our community would feel. What would you want to non-Muslim, non-Arab readers to really get out of this?
Well, I hope that whoever you are, you can find something to relate to in the book. For example, if you're a woman, I don't care what your religion or your racial identity is, I think there's lots that you can relate to in terms of coming of age, growing up as a teenage girl. But I also hope that non-Muslim or non-Arab readers can get a sort of a small glimpse into a different portrait of our communities than maybe they're used to seeing. They're used to seeing what they hear in the news. But this isn't a story like that. This is a story about real people, real families with real struggles who love each other very deeply. So I hope it offers a different perspective on Arabs and Muslims, not the stereotypical perspective.
What I love about your novel so far, from what I gathered, I haven't read it. I read a little bit of whatever is there on the online, is that you portray Muslims as real people, this is an image that was missing since 2001, since the September 11 attack. And this is something very important. And I've always, explained to our community is that only us can tell our story, and only us can reassure the larger American community that we are people just like you. And was that an intention, or was that a result of what you've been thinking all along?
I think both. I think it came naturally to me as an Arab and a Muslim American myself to write people the way that I knew them, to be authentic. But yes, I had that in my head, this idea that there aren't that many stories about us that really represent us in a fully humanized and complicated way. And that was something that even I, as a young reader growing up, was missing, that kind of representation in the literature that I was consuming.
Absolutely. I remember, Jehovah's Witnesses coming to my door during Ramadan, and they wanted to talk to us. They just stand at the door and they wanted to talk to us about something. And I said, listen, we've been fasting all day. We're tired. The last thing I want to talk about is religion. Why don't you come in and have dinner with us? First, they said no. And then they came in and, we sat down, my family and them, and we had dinner. And then I said, on the condition, we're not going to talk religion. You can talk about anything else. And then we start talking about, growing up and children and this and that. And then they found out that we face the same issues. We're people like everybody else, And when the more I read about your novel, it really carries that message as well. And I think it's very important in today's, where we are as a Muslim and American, Muslim American community and Arab American community, that the general community understands, and we are on the similar level of understanding. I really appreciate that about what you did.
I love that story about the Jehovah's Witnesses too. That's such a good example of how Arabs are so welcoming by nature. And that's something that I also try to portray in the book, that it's such a shame that Arabs, because they've been under suspicion for so many years, haven't been able to, but still they open their doors and they welcome strangers into their homes. That's the type of scene that I would want to depict in my writing too.
Yeah. The two characters in the story, do you know somebody personally like that?
I think that the two sisters are sort of a mashup of many women that I have known in my life. So I've been really blessed to have I don't have any sisters, but some really wonderful friendships. And a lot of it is about the strength of women and how women can support each other. And so I think I took influence from a lot of really wonderful, strong women in my life.
Wonderful. And what kind of reception have you gotten from our community?
Well, it's early, but so far I've had some great responses and great collaborations with various organizations like the Arab American Association of New York, which is based in Bay Ridge, and I used to work for them. The Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee, the ADC, has been a great partner in helping to promote the book. So I think that so far, I hope that people read this book, Arabs and Muslims read the book and see themselves and see this as a celebration of our communities. That would be my hope.
Absolutely. And I encourage our community to, the best way to support work like this, specifically new work, is to read it. First buy it, then read it. And buying it is very important. It's not about the money. What it's about is that the more the book is bought, the more it brings it up on the list of different newspapers, different organizations that evaluate books, and that shows that this book is successful, and then they start paying attention to other Arab American story. That I hope that our community steps up to the plate and really supports you in buying the book and then reading it, and and then inviting you to their whatever it is, communities, to talk about it, to encourage more and more people to do what you're doing. I hope they do that.
Well, I would certainly love that. I'd be happy to visit any communities. Thrilled to talk to anyone who's read the book.
Yes. Have you been to the Detroit area?
Not yet, although I was just talking to a friend of mine about how we were thinking of trying to get an event together in the Dearborn area, because I've never been, and I hear the food is amazing. So
it is. Yeah. The Dearborn area, this is a phenomenon here. Is not present. I've been all over the United States, and I used to live in Florida and Texas and other places, but what Dearborn is totally different. Dearborn is a community where the largest concentration of Arab Muslim Americans, and you feel like you're in the Middle East, but in English. So it's and I hope that you make it here, and that the community works with you to and we're going to do our best to let them know about this new book and the importance of it. Again, I can't stress this enough. It's important. It's very important to support new writers in our community. This is your new novel, right? So the first novel that you've done.
First novel.
Have you gone published before?
Just short stories.
Where?
In different literary journals like the Kenyon Review, American Short Fiction, Peace in the Muslim World, things like that.
Yeah. What's your recommendation and advice to new aspiring writers?
I would say really it's about carving out the time. It's hard because for many of us, writing doesn't really pay. You have to have another job, and you're busy. And I understand. I'm a full-time high school English teacher. I'm a mother, but really it's about carving out the time, and writing every day, because you're going to write a lot of bad things too, right? And that's all part of the process, is just getting yourself a chance to practice over and over and over again until you find your voice.
Which is understandable. I remember Hemingway, they were asking him, why do you write sentences 50 times? And he said, to get the words right. And if somebody like Hemingway writes 50 times, it's okay if we write 1,000 times, as long as we get it right. So, and I so look forward to reading the novel. Is there anything I haven't asked you that people need to know about the novel?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I hope the characters speak for themselves, and I hope they feel real, and I hope people read them and they feel like the characters feel like friends or relatives to them. Yeah.
And where do we find it? On Amazon? On
almost anywhere, really. You can shop from your local bookstore, should have it, or should be able to order it for you if they don't have it. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, really anywhere where you buy books.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. What a joy to talk to you and learn more about the novel. And I urge the community to buy it, read it, and give it to their children to read it, so we can benefit from this.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're going to take a short break. Please stay tuned.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org, or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493. Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights. At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. And I also want to thank Miss Aisha Abdel Gawad for being with us this morning, talking about her new novel, Two Moons. And what a beautiful novel, and what a privilege to talk to Miss Jawad this morning. You know, a lot of lot of us who are in writing have started books and never finished them, and have ideas on how to write them. And she mentioned something very important, is the fact that, at the beginning, and maybe half of the way, is that you have to do it while you're doing something else for a living. So is having that tenacity to continue the writing, and then produce the work that needs to be produced, and just like she said, don't worry about it, just write it, just put it together, just continue working on it until it materializes. So it's very important to do that. And I urge the community again to support Ms. Jawad, and then buy the novel, read the novel, invite her to speak about it, because we need to support our community and our immersion writers, and because they're the only one who tell our stories. Nobody else is going to tell them as well as we do. That intimacy in the writing comes from the fact that this person knows how it is to grow up in this country, and knows how to grow up to be a Muslim American, and knows how to grow up and deal with the discrimination issues and so forth and so on. So only us can tell our story better. Okay. Other people can tell stories too, but we can tell it better because we're part of the community, and it's very important to do that. So I urge you to go out there and buy the novel Two Moons by Aisha Jawad, and it's already gotten a lot of reviews on a lot of the national, international newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others, and book clubs and so forth and so on. It's very important that we do that. Again, another topic, which is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everyone. This is the time to appreciate fatherhood. I didn't appreciate fatherhood until I became a father, to be honest with you. So don't wait until to become a father to appreciate fatherhood. Spend time with your fathers, be kind to them, be nice to them, visit them, learn from them. It's a great to do that. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Lastly, we got a couple of minutes left, and I just want to, we talked briefly yesterday on this issue on this radio station, and that is that we've seen that more and more people are applying for loans for real estate, for buying homes, and the reason being there is that the loaning process has stabilized. People have gotten used to the idea that we're back to normal. We're at the 5 to 6 interest rate, and then if you need a home, you need a home. I urge you, if you need a home, don't wait. It doesn't matter what it is. Do not wait. Just get a home, buy a home. There's nothing better than home ownership. When you're renting, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Don't do that. You're throwing money out of the window. Don't do that. You're also losing on the tax benefit. Okay. So, buying a home is a win-win situation, really. It just, even if it costs you more at the beginning, think about it long-term. Long-term is what's really important. And then the other issue I want to talk to you about is, if you're selling a home, do not overprice it. It's not a good idea to overprice a home. Some people come to me and say, listen, my home is worth 300. I want to put it for 350 because the market is good. And I say, no, that's not a good idea. And here's why. If I price it at 350, people are going to shy away from it. And then other agents are going to sell other homes using your home. They're going to tell somebody, listen, for 350, I can get you a better home. Your home is worth 300, put it 300. If somebody wants to pay more, you will get more money in this market, but don't be hasty. Just put it for 300,000, and then you sell it. It's better. Listen to what I'm telling you, because we've done the numbers. We've been doing this for years and years and years. So let me put my years of experience to help you get the most money out of your home, so you can sell it correctly, and then you can sell it for a good price. The number is 313-819-0101, 0101. Thank you so much for listening. Happy Father's Day. Thank you, Mike, for great production. And thank you for all the guests that have been on the show. Good, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye now.